The college all-star games have wrapped up. We'll tell you the players that we are excited about next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us the #1 sports podcast network. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use promo code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. He is Landon McCool. And on today's show, we are recapping the Senior Bowl, which wrapped up on Saturday afternoon. We're also going to talk about a big hire the Cowboys made in their secondary. But let's start with this, Landon. This linebacker class has already been really good. We've been talking about Sonny Styles. We've talked about C.J. Allen. Arvell Reese is probably going to be a top 5 pick. But coming out of the Senior Bowl, I'm even more impressed by this class.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we've been talking about the kind of top level of this class for a little while now. And then as we've gone, especially as the All-Star games have kind of come and gone, we've started to uncover a little more of the second and third level of this class and the real true depth in this class. And it's incredibly impressive. There are guys that especially after this last week of practice of the Senior Bowl, that you're watching their tape and you're just kind of your mouth is watering a little bit because you have a need here. Clearly, you've got to get numbers. And I think this is one of the, I've been saying for a little while now that the Cowboys are sitting pretty right now with the kind of stock that you're seeing coming in from the draft. And I think at the linebacker position is specifically what I'm thinking about because it's really great at the top, but there's definitely some second and third tier players that really, really intrigue me.
And I wonder how that's going to impact how they draft at picks 12 and 20.
Absolutely.
We love Sonny Styles. He's an awesome prospect. I know a couple of people have him as a top 5 prospect in this class, but if there's so much depth at the position, are you better off using those first round picks at corner, offensive tackle, edge rusher, whatever, and using the rest of the draft to fill it in? Because let's talk about some names. I'll start with Jacob Rodriguez, who finished 5th in the Heisman Trophy voting this year at Texas Tech. Yeah. There were some concerns about what he might look like in coverage in some of these one-on-one drills. And I couldn't have been more impressed. I love that he was just beating up the running backs at the line of scrimmage, not even letting them get into their routes. I thought he was awesome all week long.
Yeah, I thought he had, he came in as a very specific archetype. You and I were talking about this before the show, that there is just kind of this type of linebacker that comes out of college into the NFL that's the very instinctual, maybe not ultra athletic, but average to below average athlete, but a guy that is always the first guy moving, right? Always the quickest to react, and that's how he gets his edge on the competition, right? And a lot of the times those guys come into these Senior Bowl practices, and you start to see a little bit of the kind of the proverbial hitch in their giddy up, right? Like a little stiff, the kind of inability to change direction. It all gets kind of exposed out here. And that really wasn't the case with Rodriguez. He came out here, he performed, he looked like the same player that you saw playing in the black and the red all throughout the season, and the kind of production that put him in the Heisman candidacy, which is absolutely ridiculous when you think about a linebacker doing that. So yeah, I just think a guy that had a lot to prove as far as where his athleticism was coming into the Senior Bowl, and I think he proved that maybe he belongs with the rest of them.
Yeah, there's going to be some obvious limitations, right? Like this is somebody who's going to run in the 4.7s. He's 6'1", 233. That's not small for a modern day linebacker, but it's not Sonny Styles either, who's 6'4" and 245 pounds, right? So there's going to be some natural limitations there, but in terms of what he did on the field during the practice and during the game, I thought he was really good. And I think he's now in that day 2 conversation. And again, I know the Cowboys don't have a day 2 pick yet. I feel pretty confident in saying that they probably will.
Yeah.
he's somebody that if you told me that the Cowboys picked in, the end of round 2, beginning of round 3, I would feel awesome about him being a day 1 starting linebacker.
Well, I mean, let's put it this way. If the Cowboys see enough of these guys in the second round, maybe that's the catalytic factor of them going to get a second round pick, right? Like maybe that's what, maybe we want to go get a second round pick now because we feel like that's really rich place to get a linebacker, which is one of the 3 positions that we really need to fill, especially on defense. So I think it matters that there's guys like him, kind of filling up the coffers at linebacker on the second level. I think I would say the same thing about Bryce Bouttcher, and I think that's how you say his name. Please don't roast me.
And Bobby Boucher and Waterboy. Yes,
yeah, I'm going with it. Come on, I'm rolling with it. And if it's not the case, just know that I love you, Bryce. The linebacker for Oregon, who I thought was really, really an eye-opening guy. I mean, we watched Oregon all season. I felt like he was a good player amongst a really good, set of good defenders. Sometimes it's hard to kind of parse these guys out. But to get him in this kind of scenario really kind of gave an opportunity to highlight his ability. And you again, another guy that maybe the opposite direction, you see his physicality, you see his body type, and he's a bigger linebacker. And I was really interested to see how he would handle situations.
Kind of. I mean, he's 6'2", 233. It's basically the same size as Rodriguez, but he feels like he plays bigger.
He plays like more. I guess that's fair. He did come in undersized just based on what you see with his eyes, but especially by the way he plays with heavy hands. He plays downhill.
Yes.
But in the Senior Bowl, like you got an opportunity to see the other side of him, and he has the capability of dropping into coverage and being effective. I thought the one-on-one drills, which again really put linebackers especially in a terrible spot. Anytime that you can have some success in a pass coverage drill as a linebacker in a one-on-one situation, you mark that down, like you notice it. And he was one of the guys that was able to have success, and I thought it really kind of showed you the sort of athlete that he is.
And then another linebacker that was smaller than both those guys, Kyle Lewis from Pittsburgh, who came in at 5'11", 224. And again, we've seen linebackers in the NFL play at that size, so it's not like he's a complete outlier.
No,
but he's going to be small, and you might have to find a role for him. And I don't know if he's an every down linebacker, but I'm a sucker for these linebackers that can move and cover like he can. Yeah. He had 2 interceptions in the one-on-one drills with the running back. And I can't tell you, it's so rare to see a guy get 1. To get 2 in like 15 reps is ridiculous. It's the best coverage linebacker drill I've ever seen from any linebacker ever in Mobile. And you put on the tape and he's flying all over and he's making plays down the field. I hope it's not one of these cases where, it's great in college and not in the NFL, but he's another guy that I think we at least need to mention in the mid rounds as a possibility.
Well, again, it's when you're this kind of borderline athlete, you have some sort of mark on you. I mean, again, really, it's just height. I mean, 224 is a capable, weight to play linebacker, I think. I mean, especially you can put on 5-10 pounds.
It's undersized, but it's not egregious.
It's not terrible, right? The 5'11" height is also probably in that range, right? Not like I'm not shocked by it, but it's definitely below average, right?
Well below
I
average,
think in order to sort of make yourself stick out, to make yourself capable of being drafted, you have to have an exceptional time here at the Senior Bowl. You have to not only prove that like I was able to overcome this, maybe a lack of specific athleticism in order to perform at college, and I can also do it at the NFL level. And I think that this is the next best step that you can on your way. And the way that he came in here and dominated the whole situation, he's one of the best players out here, showed you that, I do think he belongs. And a smart defensive coordinator will find a role for a guy like this, because I do think that he could be a really key part of a defense as an overhang or linebacker, defender, safety, hybrid, nickelback, linebacker. Like, I think that he could do a lot of different things in the right defense.
Do we have a smart defensive coordinator?
I'm starting to think so.
I think this might be a fit. He's a football player, and that's the best way you could describe, any prospect is. He just makes plays. You're going to be able to get him at a big discount because of the lack of size, but he's somebody that I'm going to go back and watch more tape of, because there's something there that I think is worth developing.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a feeling that a couple of different NFL teams are going to be watching him on draft day to see exactly how far he falls down that board and waiting to pounce on it.
All right, let's talk about some other players from this week of practice and during the games that impressed us enough that we need to go back and watch their tapes and redo their evaluations. We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than with Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And this week, Prize Picks has a special max discount for the big game live in the app right now. Drake May just needs one passing yard for the max discount to win. Add another player to your lineup, and if your picks hit, you cash in. Prize Picks is super simple to use, and it takes no time to get started. The whole format is so clean. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and if they hit, you win. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. This episode is brought to you by Drip Drop. Kicking off the year feeling good is always the goal, right? And honestly, hydration is the easiest win. I know when I stay on top of it, my energy, my focus, and my mood all level up. But let's be real, plain water doesn't always cut it, especially when you're grinding through long days, hitting the gym, or just trying to stay consistent with your health goals. But that's where Drip Drop comes in. It's doctor developed, proven fast hydration that helps your body and mind work together. Think clear focus, better energy, elevated mood, and even that fresh skin glow. And right now, Drip Drop is offering our listeners 20% off your first order. Just go to dripdrop.com, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 20% off. Stock up now at dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. If you haven't done so already, go check out the new Everydayer Club. You're going to get access to ad-free audio of the Locked On Cowboys podcast, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. Just go to lockedoncowboys.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, Landon, let's talk about some players that stood out to us this week that we need to go back and check our notes, reevaluate, watch some more tape. Who do you got?
How about I want to twist this around real quick, and I'm popping this on you. I have a list of really good guys that I like, but can I start with one guy that I thought I didn't think was impressive, and I want to go back and watch his tape?
Yes.
I thought Colton Hood really kind of had a very up and down week, as a guy that we kind of expected to be the sort of headliner of this all-star game. Certainly I feel like he was the kind of general consensus board high, and honestly, you may have the answer obviously in front of you, but I felt like he was the guy that had the consensus board highest ranking coming into this game. I mean, into this week of practice. And I just felt like, he was uneven and he was up and down. And I think especially when you compare how he played again, versus Davison Igbinosun that we talked about, who I think, was similarly sort of up and down at times. But I think that, when you compare the fact of where Colton Hood is versus where Igbinosun was, I thought that they were, comparable. And I think that, if I'm looking at the two, I don't know. I mean, I thought maybe even Igbinosun had a better week. And I think several other guys are obviously included that may have had better weeks. But just considering where he was, I thought Colton Hood just, wasn't necessarily as impressive as I wanted him to be.
Well, I remember on that Tuesday, Daniel Jeremiah mocked Colton Hood to the Cowboys at pick 12, and it felt rich at the time, and it feels even richer now after watching the Senior Bowl. And all the negatives came out where little tight-hipped on in-breaking routes. That's where he can get beat. Now you weren't able to see the physicality of him coming in the run game and making plays, but I just did not think it was a particularly strong week. So I'm 100% in agreement there. Who are some other guys that stood out to you, maybe in a positive way?
Oh yeah, the rest of these guys are all positive. Honestly, I was really a big fan of what I saw from Mike Washington, who's a running back from Arkansas. I mean, we talked a lot about Jaden Ott, and I think that to me, Jaden Ott is the number one of the guy of this list that we just didn't understand like exactly what happened with the Senior Bowl, his last year in college with OU, and what happened in the Senior Bowl obviously opened our eyes. So just we're kind of we've talked about him already, so we're just moving past him. But Mike Washington to me is a guy that showed a level of athleticism at his size. I think he's 224 pounds or 220 plus pounds. And I think he had a 21 mile per hour run at one point. And you saw that, right? You saw the kind of nice cutback ability. And you saw him kind of getting uphill. So both of those guys, I'll just throw them in there. Mike Washington, then obviously Jaden Ott, who we talked about all throughout the week. And then just had an incredible first half of the Senior Bowl as well. Just continues to pique my interest. So I got a lot of running back tape to kind of go back and watch, I think, here in a little bit.
Same. Again, we're going to talk about Jaden Ott probably later in the draft process, but that was somebody that looked like a completely different player from what we saw at Oklahoma whenever we saw him, because we didn't see very much of him. I think Ott is somebody that's right back into this, early day 3 conversation. I got one in a minute. I'm going to butcher the name, but I'm going to do my best.
Let's do it.
It's Max Iananker from Arizona State, an offensive tackle who came in at like 6'8", 330 pounds, has not been playing football for very long. And I left Mobile thinking this is the best offensive tackle of all the players in the group. And it's rich taking a guy that is so raw.
Yeah.
But there's just not very many guys that are that big, that powerful, and that athletic. And usually they go way higher than anybody thinks. And the best example of that, I'm going to go Cowboys history. Dallas took Tyron Smith at pick 9.
Yeah.
And there was way more. Was it Gabe? Oh, what was the guy's name from Wisconsin? Gabe Kamini, I think is what his name was.
Right. Yeah.
And the Cowboys took this freak athlete betting on the traits. I bet you that's going to happen with a team somewhere in the first round with him.
And a lot of these times the traits have won, like betting on the traits has ended up a home run. So yeah, I get that. It's just, where he's being talked about is obviously a lot higher than I expected, but I think, he had a really good week of practice and he certainly deserves a second look for sure. I just want to mention off some names real quick because I think we just need to Bud Clark, safety from TCU. We talked about him a little bit. I just need to go back and watch, because I didn't get a chance to see a lot of TCU this year. Obviously, we felt that he had a great week of practice. Gabe Backus from Illinois, who throughout the week was just dominant in one-on-one situations. Looks very fluid, a big guy. He can move people with his hands a little bit too. He interests me as a potential outside linebacker, pass rusher type for the Dallas Cowboys. And then who was the last guy I had? Oh, Grayson Halton from OU, the defensive tackle. We don't really know exactly what the Cowboys' need is at defensive tackle at this point. All the guys that were on the defensive tackle, the defensive line before last year are coming back this year, including Thomas and some of the down roster guys. But we don't know how long they're going to be on the roster. We don't know if they want to upgrade that position a little bit. And if
we don't know how they
fit.
We don't even know how they fit the new defensive coordinator, right?
Absolutely good point. And so if they want to go out and get a defensive tackle that is another kind of penetrator up the field guy, I think Grayson Halton has some really, really intriguing traits that they might want to invest in.
And again, I don't think it's smart to just say, okay, this is what the Eagles ran under Vic Fangio. That's what the Cowboys are going to want with Christian Parker. Yeah. However, there are all of Christian Parker's stops. There's a variation of this like 3-4 or 5-man fronts where they want guys that can get up the field and make plays. And I think of someone like Milton Williams, who they drafted, was like 280 pounds. They drafted him in the 3rd round because he could get up the field and make plays. And if the Cowboys are going to be using more odd man fronts, 3-man fronts, 5-man fronts, maybe you just need to invest more in defensive tackles. And we should mention Solomon Thomas is on the last year of his deal. Kenny Clark has no guaranteed money left on his contract. We have no idea what they think of Perion Winfrey. It wouldn't shock us at all if they spend an early day 3 pick on another rotational defensive tackle that maybe fits the scheme better than Matt Eberflus's.
Yeah, I mean, think about the influences that we have with this group, right? With Fangio, he's got a lot of this in the playbook where he's got two eyes and then a nose in there, right? And you see it with the Denver playbook as well. With Vance Joseph, they run a lot of two defensive tackles and then a nose, right? And the nose is also 285 to 310 pounds. We're not talking about like a nose. So
No.
they need one gap penetrating defensive tackles as part of this rotation. So it wouldn't be shocking if they went after a defensive tackle.
All right, so that's all of our Senior Bowl talk. We'll continue to get into draft profiles and scouting reports over the next 2 months, so be on the lookout for that. But we actually got some big coaching news over the weekend. The Cowboys have hired another secondary coach. We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Quo. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there's got to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades that you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled QUO, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number, so nothing ever gets missed. So it's no surprise that Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operations to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNFL. That is QUO.com/LockedOnNFL. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena, the crowd, the energy, the moment. But getting tickets, that can be the frustrating part. It's never been simple, but that's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without all of the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, and that's with the fans. I was looking at some tickets for a game coming up this upcoming weekend, and I found some unbelievable seats at fantastic prices. I love being able to see the all-in price up front, so you're not surprised by any fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. That's promo code Locked On for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today, and remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Landon, the Cowboys have hired a new coach, that is Derrick Ansley, formerly of the Green Bay Packers, to be their new passing game coordinator and defensive back coach. What do you think of the hire?
I think it's another in a series of hires that kind of what we've talked about is following this pathway of they lay out a clear path of what they're looking for, and then their process goes to go out and narrow this down to a group of guys that all kind of make sense with what they're doing, right? They go out and get a guy that has experience with Saban and with Brandon Staley, and they've made it very clear that they want to run a lot of match coverage, a lot of man zone kind of looks. And now you've got a guy who's going to be calling your coverages that has experience in both sides of the world, both in the kind of cover 3 Rip Liz zone situation, and then also in the Brandon Staley kind of split field versions of that as well. So, you need coaches who understand how to teach their cornerbacks how to play with their eyes, right? Because a lot of these systems are all post-snap reactive to what's happening in the offense, and then depending on which routes are being run, they will flip from man to zone or flip from cover 1 to cover 3, and so they have to teach these guys how to play with their eyes and be more reactive to what routes are being run as opposed to just being locked into man coverage. So it takes a lot of guys with experience to our experienced teachers. That was another thing that they talked about, right? And who better than a guy that's been hired by Nick Saban not once but twice to teach defensive backs on how to play their defense properly. So I think it was a good hire. It made a lot of sense. And again, just kind of following the path that they've laid out, which you say for better or for worse, we'll see if it works out. But at least they're true to their word about what they're doing.
The other part of it I like about it is Ansley was a former defensive coordinator with the Chargers in 2023 before he went over to Green Bay. And talking to our guy, Peter Bukowski from Locked On Packers, they really liked him. They didn't necessarily want him to go. They thought they got an upgrade with the guy they got from Buffalo. Totally understandable. But all the reports are, the Cowboys got a good one here. He's not going to be he's not going to be calling plays, but he's going to be somebody that I wouldn't be surprised is up in the booth, helping Christian Parker, because we don't know. We haven't heard, is Parker going to be down on the field? Is he going to be in the booth? Because he was up with Vic Fangio before, working kind of right next to him. That still needs to kind of figure that out. But if Parker's going to be on the field, I got to believe that Ansley is going to be somebody that is right in the ear of Parker.
Yeah, I mean, this is a coverage guy, so maybe being in the booth is important just to kind of see how all the routes are being run, where they need to tighten things up, and if they need to make adjustments. They do need somebody that's coverage based up in the booth, so I would imagine it's him more than Ryan Smith, who's the cornerbacks coach.
Yeah. All right, that is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Cowboys ad-free, plus members-only Discord access, and so much more. Head over to lockedoncowboys.supercast.com to join the club. And for those of you on video, we can send you the first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel. And on audio, make your second listen to Locked On NFL podcast. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus _Mosher. We'll see you guys right back here tomorrow.